up one.
I just heard it in here ringing. Let me call it. I just heard it.
I
I
thought.
thought it was Gloria's phone. Hold on, let me get in my phone. I'll call it.
Okay.
I was
Oh, I
getting.
found it. Right here.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was.
I was unhooking those.
I said Gloria's phone was just a ringing. I'm gonna go get me some ice water.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to open the lines at 5 off.
Okay. We got 4 people already on.
You can't see who they are, can you?
No, can't see who they are. I never tried. I don't think I did.
And up with it.
It's 6 people now.
Yeah.
Nah, I can't see.
You 6 people on live stream,
Yes,
not
six
the phone.
people logged in already.
Right. I'm gonna put the phone number on.
Welcome to the conference group. Please enter your passcode followed by the pound key.
I got the mute on.
Okay. Raj, did you want me to have this letter? We had it in back of the March 31st letter.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know if you saw it.
You can have it if you want.
Oh, okay.
Do you need it? I'll give it to you at the end.
Yeah, that's
That was
fine.
just in case they refer to it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. This is, you know what, more than this is what you need because they're going to argue about this one. This opening order.
It's 0217.
Okay. What happened was this order, the amount of file late last night, we have not agreed to it. Staff and DP has not agreed to it. But they wanted the commission to have this. Commissioners have this. That's why there's no number. Hold on to it in case there's something to refer to it.
Perfect.
You know.
Thank you.
Yeah. What did you do, Gloria?
What? I have my glasses.
Ow.
No, when I go outside, like in Wawa or something,
Yeah.
I put my mask on. So instead of taking her off, that just.
Do you dry clean it afterwards?
I got I had a bunch of them.
You do?
I had a bunch of them from when I was sick in February.
Yeah, well, I have a box full I found in my basement because I'm allergic. So I used to have a box for lawn mowing.
That's why I have them for the lawnmower.
Yeah.
Because especially now, cutting the grass.
Yeah.
Can't breathe.
Yeah, me either.
Mm-hmm.
I can't breathe every day.
That was the exception of the last meeting we had 2 weeks ago. And yesterday was the first time I worked since the meeting.
Wow.
Even with the courts.
Yeah, the last commission meeting, and then yesterday I had a phone message from the doctor. It's not that long. I hate Gene.
By the way, all the microphones are disconnected forever. Well, I mean, since you don't, they echo a lot. I just get one for the live stream, that's it. We're connected. I have it on mute. I'll take it up.
Hello?
Hello?
Is that you, Andrea?
This is
Hello,
Kim
Commissioner.
Drexler.
Commissioner Gray is calling. Good afternoon.
Yeah, Commissioner, you gotta hold on. Everybody, please keep your phones on mute when the chairman comes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. disconnect, they won't be able to call in, I think. So we need to get host.
I'm gonna disconnect you.
Yeah, me too. You know what I do? Like if I hit the mute button to unmute, I go and hit the end call. It's like, oh shit. You got it. No, oh, good. Call back, call back.
Is that five commissioners plan?
Yeah.
Is anybody on the line?
Hey, Jim, Tom Walsh here. This is Scott Steffen from
Hi,
Artesian.
excuse me, everybody. Just stay mute, please. We'll do a roll call later on. Thank you.
Joanne Conaway calling in. Hello?
Hi, Commissioner. We're all on mute until 1, and then we'll turn it on.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'll put it on mute now. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, we got two commissioners, right?
When Dallas calls in, I'll just say, oh, you're all yours.
So the juniors are always gonna call.
Right, and then 1 and 2 are switched.
Okay.
So 2 will go first, and then 1. And 1 is where you get a lock.
We're waiting for Mrs. Dunn. You know what? You know what?
Hello,
Hey, Commissioner Korea, we're all on.
Dallas.
Yes. Hey, Commissioner.
very fine, guys. Hello, everyone.
Hold on, Commissioner. 1 sec. Mr. Chairman, you're on. You have 3 minutes to start the call.
Yes, sir.
I was going to wait to mute everyone. On WebEx, you can mute people on WebEx. And if somebody wants to speak, they have to raise their hand or the icon. Here's the problem with people like,
Who's Lindsay?
I was just told, one of our recruiters that, even though we're independent, there's a core group of us in our office.
Yeah.
And sometimes we sub out to
Yeah.
an independent, true independent. And she does, or works for Delaware.
uh-huh.
And she told me she did a hearing last week with a web.
Yeah, WebEx, yeah.
She said it went pretty well. but
Yeah.
There was only 1 or 2 people, so I said,
Well, so the problem with WebEx is not problem. It's fine. We need to set up and test. So we've had like meetings. So now we have 3 weeks. So we're gonna test it and see how it will work. Because for WebEx, then somebody has to be in the control more than live stream. So you have to watch it. The person who's hosting has to watch it, and then if somebody raises their hand, you have to click it. It is good, but it's also got this technology. It's the same like Zoom. Everybody's using Zoom a lot. So I'm gonna wait a second.
did you find it?
Yeah, it was here. I was disconnecting everything. And we're some seconds away. All right, what do you got? 1 o'clock? Yep, it's 1. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. It's 1 o'clock. Mr. Chairman, all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the April 1st, 2020 Public Service Commission meeting. I would like everyone out there who's listening in to just take a moment and do a little bit of a technology check. You probably hear a little bit of noise in the background from my phone because my prayer is scripted in the agenda. But I would like everyone to go onto their phone and look and find the mute button and hit the mute button so that we can have some pretty clear communications throughout the meeting. It should be a short meeting. Also, if you're going to speak, obviously, please initiate your conversation by identifying yourself, and then I think we'll be in pretty good shape. And Raj, if there is a sort of a commotion because someone is a late arrival and they have it muted, please just let me know what's happening in the room, and I'll try to remind people as we go.
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim Geddes. Might I ask a question or put forward a proposal?
Well, certainly, Jim.
The reason I say that, we participated, I guess, in our first electronic meeting on the 18th, and I think by and large it went pretty well, but it did get a little rough at the end with regard to some of the arguments being made of some of the parties. And I say this also on behalf of Gloria. I think it would be helpful if you as the chair or the commissioners identified those people who are going to speak, and then obviously if there's a second round, identify them, and if there are any additional comments. But for the parties and their counsel to wait until you identify them as their opportunity to speak, I think it will avoid us talking over one another. Some of us are on cell phones, not on hardline phones, and there's a tendency to be a little bit of a delay. And I think that leads to people talking over one another, and it's hard to follow sometimes. And I believe Gloria, it's very hard for her. So I was just wondering if it would be helpful if no one, the parties or counsel, speaks unless recognized by the chair or another member of the commission. Just a thought. I just throw it out there. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a good thought, and the only exception to that would be that, frankly, not being a perfect person, I may forget to recognize somebody, in which case I feel that whoever that person is, I'm not ignoring you or that party. I just may have overlooked you. So please, in those circumstances, I think you need to interrupt and identify yourself and indicate the reason for the interruption, and everybody else should be quiet so that Gloria can get everything down. So thank you, Jim, for your suggestion. There are,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, this is Regina Iori for the Public Advocate. Just to follow up on that, perhaps it might be helpful if before, after you've identified the agenda item, if you asked who the parties are that will be speaking on that particular item, and we can identify ourselves, and that way you'll have some sort of idea who and how many people will be speaking.
That's a great suggestion, and I appreciate that, but I'm supposed to have all of those people on my list on the agenda. However, that list is not necessarily always correct or always has all of the parties who are going to speak on the list. So, okay, let's try to incorporate that as we go forward. Okay, there's no minutes, if I understand correctly, to be read and be considered. So we're going to go to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gray. Could we first take a roll call of commissioners present? Thank you.
I thought Raj had already done that. Raj?
No, Commissioner. Chairman, I was waiting for you to do that. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm present, obviously. Commissioner Gray's present. Commissioner Conaway? Commissioner Drexler?
Yes, I'm here. Drexler?
Commissioner Correa?
Yes, I'm here as well.
Commissioner Conaway?
Is Commissioner Conaway on mute, perhaps?
Yes.
I'm here.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The consent agenda. Anybody want to have one of those items taken off?
Move we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Commissioner Gray, second.
Commissioner Gray has seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. On the regular agenda, we're going to flip-flop number 2 and number 1 and proceed with number 2 first, and that is in the matter of the petition of the staff of the Delaware Public Service Commission and the Delaware Public Advocate for approval of revisions to Delaware Power and Light Company's electric tariff. And we're going to consider proposed order 9564. It's my understanding that Mr. Geddes will be representing staff on the possibility of Ms. McDowell testifying, that Drew Slater and Ms. Iori will be representing the DPA, and that Ms. Scott will be representing DP&L. And I believe that Mr. Geddes is going to kick this off on behalf of the staff. Mr. Geddes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, and thank you for the opportunity to address you on this particular order, which I will say that all the parties worked very hard on last week. I'm sorry that we couldn't get it to you on the scheduled Tuesday before the meeting, but we did try to work very diligently up through Thursday to get what I believe is a consensual order before you for your consideration. You will recall at the last meeting we did have argument on the staff and the DPA petition, as well as the company's motion to consolidate, which the Commission decided, as represented in the order, to grant the petition and to deny the motion. This is a follow-up, obviously, a written order to that discussion and deliberation. The meat of it is in paragraphs 3 through 6, in which the company agrees to, within 30 days, validate all the commercial customers that are eligible for reclassification to a different type of service. That letters will start to go out immediately to the MGSS and LGSS customers regarding their potential eligibility, and that within 60 days of the order, Delmarva shall develop tests for alternative methodologies for reclassifying commercial customers. Attached to that are the proposed revisions to the tariffs that were requested in the petition. They've been reviewed by all parties, and I believe we have agreement that those proposed changes are appropriate, and so therefore staff, on behalf of itself, as well as the DPA, but they'll speak for themselves, staff supports this form of order, and hopefully you will adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. The DPA supports the proposed form of order.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. DPA also supports the form of order, and we wanted to specifically thank staff and DPA for working with us collaboratively to come up with the language in the order as well as the revisions to the form of tariff.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Is there anyone else that needs to talk on this matter? Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties? If not, may we please have a motion?
This is Commissioner Kalia. I so move that we adopt order number 9564.
This is Commissioner Drexler, and I second the motion.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve proposed order 9564?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gray. Just for point of clarification, Mr. Executive Director, have we seen this order come in front of us, the document yet?
It was in your package. You should have received it.
Okay. All right. I must have overlooked it, but that's all. That's the only clarification I'm seeking, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Was that question answered, Harold?
Yes, it was. It was. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. Go ahead.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Donna Nickerson, Commission Secretary, indicates that we believe Commissioner Gray opposed this action when it was last before the commission verbally. Commissioner Gray?
So, yes, let me weigh in for just a moment. This reason I'm asking the question for clarification because I seem to recall in the last meeting there was a motion to consolidate, and I think I opposed that. No, I think I approved the motion to consolidate. But this motion now, as I understand it, is to revise the tariff. Am I correct?
It's to sort of enshrine what we decided, plus the tariff changes.
Might I speak, Your Honor? This is Jim Geddes. Yes,
sir.
I only asked since I did have the laboring oar, I guess, in presenting this to everyone. The first paragraph of the order confirms what I believe was the majority position after the deliberations, that the petition would be agreed to, but the motion to consolidate would not be. And in the now wherefore clause, I believe that the vote of Commissioner Gray is properly reflected. All the order really does is, one, to approve the changes in the tariffs, but also sets out some time markers, constraints for Delmarva to do certain things with regard to providing notice and validating these potential customers that might change service. So it does a couple of things, but the primary thing is to change the tariffs and set some timelines for follow-up. Thank you.
So, may I ask Mr. Geddes just a point of clarification? So, Mr. Geddes, if what you said is that there's language that memorializes the position I took on the motion to consolidate, then I would not be in conflict supporting the changes to the tariff in this case. Is that your understanding?
I'm thinking. It takes a little longer for me these days. Now, seriously, but the first paragraph, I'm trying to sort of parse out what your question entails. The first paragraph says that it's because it uses the word "and," they're two things together. So the petition of the staff and the DPA is granted, and the motion to consolidate is denied. On that basis, you have voted, as the written order reflects at the moment, you voted against that.
Okay, I understand. So, Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Geddes. Mr. Chair, in this matter, I'd like to abstain, just as a formal, not to confuse the issue or come across as in conflict with my prior decision. I have no further questions, sir.
Are there any other questions? No, I forgot. We have a motion, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And so therefore, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
I heard 4 ayes, and there's 1 abstention. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Geddes, very much, and Ms. Iori and Ms. Scott. Number 1 on the regular agenda is in the matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for an increase in electric base rates and other miscellaneous tariff changes. What I have on my list is that we have Dawn Kurtz-Crompton or Pam Scott. I'm not sure who's speaking.
Chairman Winslow, it's Pam Scott. I will be speaking.
Okay. And I also have Mr. Geddes for staff and Ms. Iori for DPA. Is there anyone else that's supposed to be speaking in this matter? I don't believe so. So it's application of Delmarva Power and Light. So I recognize Ms. Scott.
Thank you very much, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Just briefly, Delmarva did file a letter and form of order with the commission in connection with this particular docket. As you may be aware, Delmarva's rate case was filed on March the 6th. Arguably, we believe the opening order should have been on the agenda for the commission for March 18th, but at the very least, we think the order should be approved as of today. We've been trying to negotiate a form of order with staff and the public advocate, but so far they have refused to move forward until the responses to the minimum filing requirements deficiency letter were provided. We are, of course, very disappointed that they have taken that position and their lack of collaboration on this particular matter, whereas in other matters which you just saw in the prior matter on the docket, we have had a lot of collaboration and cooperation. The precedent and past practice of the commission has been that the opening order does get approved well before the minimum filing requirement responses are due. In fact, there is a separate remedy if there is some concern that the minimum filing requirements have not been met. There is a remedy provided in 26 Delaware Administrative Code 1002A, Section 1.5. In addition, with not following what has been the precedent of the commission, we now have the public advocate issuing separate minimum filing requirement deficiencies and insisting that they be resolved prior to the issuance of an opening order. The provisions of 26 Delaware Administrative Code 1002, Section 1.5 provides very specifically that commission staff shall review filings for compliance with the minimum filing requirements and request the commission secretary to notify the utility of the alleged defects in compliance. There is no provision giving authority to the public advocate to issue minimum filing requirement deficiency notices. In an attempt to move this case forward in a timely manner, we have already filed voluntary responses to discovery. We have provided the cost of service study. We filed our responses to the minimum filing requirement deficiency letter as of yesterday, even though they are not due until April 3rd. For the company, this is really a matter of regulatory efficiency and trying to move the case forward in a timely manner. The docket for Delmarva's gas case, which was filed on February 21st, was opened in less than a month, so we fail to see why the order for this case is being held up. There is no prejudice to staff or DPA by issuing the opening order today, but at the very least, if this order cannot be approved today, we would respectfully request that it be on the agenda for the commission's meeting for April 22nd, and that the company not be subject to further delay in this docket. Thank you very much, and I would reserve the opportunity to respond to other comments.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Geddes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is a very interesting position that the company is seeking an opening order that both the DPA and staff believe is inappropriate. The opening order that they propose is, as I'm reminded of Ron Ziegler's comments at his press conferences during the Nixon administration, no longer operative. And the reason for that is that based on testimony filed yesterday, supplemental testimony by Mr. Zeminski, not only are the rates no longer requested by the company, no longer are the revenues that were filed on March 6th requested by the company, the cost of service is going to be changed at the end of the month, and so there's really very little left of the original application filed less than 25 days ago. If you look at the statute by which all utilities and this commission operate, they reference the word rates, not revenues, rates. And when requesting a change in rates, the company makes an application for approval by the commission. And the first 10 sections of Title 26, Chapter 1, Subchapter Roman 3, all refer to rates except for two. Here we have, as filed yesterday by the company, supplemental testimony that changes materially the rates for which the company seeks approval. Thus, the proposed order is materially deficient. First, and most importantly, in the first whereas clause, it asks for rates to support $24.3 million worth of revenue. But that is no longer what the company seeks. As of last night, the company now seeks $27 million in revenues, or $2.7 million than they did the day before. In addition, the test period, which was noted by staff to be deficient under the minimum filing requirement, has been updated for 9 and 3. This is a new test period, has new information. I believe the filing was about 130 to 150 pages last night. Clearly, that has not been reviewed for whether it meets the current standards. And so we have a completely new case, new rates, new revenues, new cost of service, and it's staff's position that this matter and this order in particular, which has a notice that the company is seeking you to approve, that we all know is not relevant. It's not accurate. You would be adopting an order that says that the rate increase is $24.3 million. That's not the rate increase based on the testimony yesterday. The rate increase now is $27 million. And the notice by which that would be given to the customers, the company proposed to send it out with that inaccuracy in it. That's not their case anymore. Their case is $27 million. Now, I don't think under the circumstances, this company should be asking you to enter an order that has material defects in it based on their own filings. And again, we go back to rates. Those Those that were filed on March 6th are no longer the rates that Delmarva is seeking. Accordingly, the opening order, as filed last night or this morning by Delmarva, should not be approved today. In their cover letter, I'll make two more points and I'm finished. The company says they will be prejudiced. This is the last paragraph on page 2 of Ms. Scott's letter to Dr. Barua. They never say how they're going to be prejudiced. They are not asking for interim rates. The order itself doesn't even say that the DISC will be zeroed out. There are many, many deficiencies in the order, and there is no prejudice if this is delayed until we have more information from the company as to what they're actually seeking. And this is not a case that can be compared to other cases. As you know, and I know you're sick of me telling you this, but I've been involved in every Delmarva case except one since 1982. And I've never seen this happen quite this way. I have seen rate cases that through supplemental testimony there were changes, but usually always in a downward direction, not in an upward direction, even before the opening order has been submitted to the company. So under the circumstances, I think it is not necessary for the commission to consider this order at this time. The commission should not consider this order at this time because it has material representations that are no longer accurate. And therefore, staff would ask the commission not to consider this opening order at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Ms. Iori? Is Ms. Iori there?
Mr. Chairman, this is Drew. She may be on mute, so we'll try and get her momentarily.
I'm sending her an email.
Yeah, she may be on mute. I'm sure she made an excellent argument to herself, though.
Well, Mr. Dennis, Ms. Ivory.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, how are you? Would you please proceed?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Gray. Sometimes with the technology, if you go to punch the mute button, you cut yourself off the entire call. I suspect she's going to call back in momentarily.
Mr. Geddes?
I probably could anticipate her argument, but I think she'll be right back on. I sent her an email, and I think she knows that, she's probably trying to get on, as Commissioner Gray said.
Hello?
There she is.
Hi there.
I'm very, my apologies. My screen disappeared and I couldn't get it myself off mute. I'm so sorry. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners, for the opportunity to address this issue. The DPA, like staff, urges the Commission to reject Delmarva's request to enter its proposed opening order and its proposed form of public notice. I will try not to repeat what Mr. Geddes said, although I may trot over that same ground a little bit. I do want to address Delmarva's pointing out what it calls a lack of cooperation on its request in this matter. I don't believe that there's any kind of rule or law that we have to cooperate with Delmarva when we disagree with their position. And as you have heard from Mr. Geddes, and you will hear from me, we do disagree with their position. I would also note that we didn't get Delmarva's, quote, supplemental, unquote, filing until this morning. So we didn't know, even at the time that we were being asked to agree to it, that Delmarva was going to change its requested rate increase. But moving on, as Mr. Geddes has already discussed, we oppose opening this docket today when Delmarva has failed to comply with the Commission's minimum filing requirements. And as he has also discussed, in what Delmarva calls supplemental testimony, it increases its requested rate increase by some $2.7 million. I kind of feel like we've been here before. Delmarva's revenue requirement was a moving target in its last rate case, too. And the Commission may remember that because it was changing its requested rate increase, staff and the DPA asked the Commission to deem Delmarva's supplemental filing for an increased revenue requirement a new case. The Commission didn't want to do that then because it had already opened the rate case and things were proceeding apace, but it did allow at least for a revision of the procedural schedule. Here, the case hasn't even been opened yet, and Delmarva is already changing its requested rate increase. Second, Delmarva has stated its intention to submit a revised cost of service study at the end of April. The regulatory efficiency that Delmarva encourages would dictate that we wait until we have a complete application, one that complies with all of the minimum filing requirements, and one that submits the cost of service study that is actually going to be the one on which Delmarva relies, rather than the one that was submitted back on March 6th. So these issues are simply two more reasons, in addition to the incompleteness of its application, that Delmarva's electric case should not be opened today, and that its proposed form of order and public notice should be rejected. So we would respectfully request the Commission to reject the proposed order and to find that its application is incomplete until the minimum filing requirements have been satisfied and until Delmarva submits the revised cost of service study on which its revenue increase request in this case will be based. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Iori. Ms. Scott, a question for you. The next cost of services report or study is going to be done or accomplished by April the 30th. Is that correct?
On or before April 30th is what we had provided for in the attached form of order in paragraph 7.
And I noticed, obviously, in your comments that a secondary position for Delmarva would be to put this matter on the calendar for the 22nd, our next meeting.
Correct.
And Ms. Iori?
And
Yes, yes, Chairman Winslow?
Is there any objection from staff or from the DPA to address this matter, see if we can put Humpty Dumpty back together again on the 22nd? Or is the cost of services report so important that we're not able to do that? In your position.
I'm sorry, Chairman Winslow, I didn't mean to jump on the rest of your question. This is Gina Iori. I guess the answer to that is we really don't know. I think we need to see what is submitted before we know whether that complies with the minimum filing requirements. If Delmarva does in fact file it before April 22nd, and there is time to review it, so that means not filing it on April 20th or April 21st. I don't think we would necessarily have an objection, but they have not committed to a date certain for filing it. So until there is some commitment to a date certain, I don't think that the DPA is in a position to say that we would agree to put this matter on for April 22nd.
Right.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes, go ahead, Gina, if you're not finished. Go ahead.
no,
that wasn't me. I was finished.
Oh, okay.
Mr.
So,
Geddes?
if I may be heard,
Mr. Geddes?
brief. Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. We would agree that the cost of service will be very important to this proceeding, and we did not specifically argue before that we were insisting on the cost of service being filed before we take up the case. But as a matter of efficiency, because we are migrating up to 5,400 customers from one rate classification to another, as well as over 200 other customers, as identified in Mr. Zeminski's supplemental testimony, there are going to be significant changes in relative costs by class and their contributions to the system overall rate of return. So these are not minor little cost of service changes.
I cut myself off.
I can hear you. Can you still hear me? Dr. Barua, shall we wait?
Hi, Jim. Yeah, this is Raj. Wait for a second. I think the chairman got cut off.
Okay. Once you tell me to continue, I will.
In the meantime, I'm going to ask Gloria to look at where we stopped.
So these are not more cost of service.
Okay. Did you hear that, Jim? That's where you stopped.
Yeah, these are not minor cost of service issues.
Okay.
But is the chairman back?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, are you back?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm here.
I'm going to continue, Mr. Chairman, if that's acceptable to you.
Sorry.
Yes, it is.
One talks loud, one talks.
All right, thank you. So I believe I was talking about cost of service, and the changes that are going to be required because of this migration of customers is not going to be minimal, it's going to be substantial. As I said, the system rates of return by class are going to change. And I think, although we're not sure, that one of the reasons why Delmarva is seeking a rate increase over their original application will be based in part on this. So belt and suspenders would say that the best way is that rates really can't be supported without a cost of service. So you have rates that are dangling out there that have no cost of service backup. The other observation I'd like to make, it's only 14 days from the 22nd to the next commission meeting. And as Ms. Iori suggested, it may be more prudent and more efficient to wait as to when the company will file the cost of service. They may file it early. The proposed order that you're considering says April 30th, but like the minimum filing requirements, the company may see a need to get this revised cost of service study done more promptly. So staff has not taken a position on the April 22nd meeting and whether an opening order would be appropriate there, but staff is not opposed to the DPA's observation that for efficiency purposes, it would be better to wait the filing of the cost of service and have all components of the matter, the rates, the revenue requirement, the cost of service, the individual class allocations in front of us before we start the docket. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes.
Chairman.
Ms. Scott?
Yes, may I respond, please?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you very much. I guess first and foremost, compliance with the minimum filing requirements has never been tied to when the order gets opened in rate cases. There is, as I indicated before, a separate provision within the provisions of the regulations that would allow staff and or EPA to file a motion with the commission if they believe that the minimum filing requirements have not been complied with. But frankly, that's not part of the consideration of whether or not an order gets opened in a rate case. Secondly, yes, as a result of what happened in docket 20-0217 with the customer migration, there will be an impact on the cost of service study. There really is no way around that. That's why we had included a very specific provision in the proposed form of order as to how that would be addressed, including, of course, republishing the revised rates so that everyone is aware of the impact. With respect to rate cases, rates and revenues fluctuate fairly frequently during the course of a rate case. As Ms. Iori indicated in docket 170977, there was a more significant increase in revenue, and the case proceeded to move forward without changing the schedule. We certainly are cognizant of the need to publish the changes when they are determined, but there really isn't any reason at this point that the opening order should be withheld until the revised cost of service study has been completed. And if that doesn't happen today, there certainly is no reason why it shouldn't happen on April the 22nd so that we can continue to move this case forward in a manner that is regulatory-wise is efficient and effective and not continuing to delay. Thank you.
Chairman Winslow, this is Gina Iori. May I respond briefly?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I think Delmarva has just established why it would be administratively inefficient to open this case now. I think I heard Ms. Scott say that they would issue a separate public notice with the revised rates once the cost of service study is the revised cost of service study is submitted. Well, what is the point of that except to add additional costs that ratepayers will have to pay? Public notice is not cheap, and there is no reason why we should file two public notices, one which says there's going to be an increase of $24.7 million, and another one, however many weeks later, that says there's going to be an increase of $27.2 million. That is, not only is it administratively inefficient, but it's confusing. Thank you.
Ms. Scott?
Chair Winslow, I think, these are unique circumstances. We, as a result of docket 20-0217, we had to pivot and make some substantial changes with respect to certain customer classes. We are now attempting to do that. And obviously, as I said before, that will affect our class cost of service study and our rate design. But we are trying to do this in a matter to continue to allow our case to move forward. Again, there is no prejudice to DPA or staff. We haven't set a procedural schedule for anything yet. We are simply trying to move this forward. And again, trying to say that the order cannot be opened until the minimum filing requirements have been met is not anything that's ever been followed before by this commission.
What prejudice would it be to Delmarva Power and Light if we followed the DPA and staff suggestion that the matter be scheduled for the first meeting after the receipt of the cost of service study?
I guess, Chair Winslow, I'm not quite sure why that is necessary. As I said before, during the course of rate cases in the past, rates and revenues do change as you're working through the process.
But point of clarification, if I might, one sentence, Your Honor.
Mr. Geddes?
But they may change during the case, but I believe this is the first time they've changed before the opening order, and therefore the opening order does not reflect the change. And I think before the commission approves anything in this docket, the numbers, the correct numbers, as Ms. Iori pointed out, so ratepayers are not confused by getting two public notices, should be in the opening order, and it is not.
And Chair Winslow, if I may, just one quick note. Your regulations do provide that a docket is not, won't be opened until the application is complete. Ms. Scott keeps referring to a portion of Section 1.5 of the minimum filing requirements, but that only applies if staff deems the noncompliance with the format and instructions of the MFRs to be minor. It does not appear that staff believed that was, that the company's original failure to fulfill all the minimum filing requirements was minor, and the DPA would certainly suggest that a cost of service study, which we all know now does not support the rates that Delmarva will be asking for, is certainly not minor. Thank you.
Ms. Scott, I think you should have the last word if you want to say something.
Chair Winslow, obviously I don't want to repeat myself, but if we will be severely prejudiced if we have to continue down this path and not get an opening order for this case until sometime in May. If we were able to file the class cost of study before the revised class cost of service study before April 21st or 22nd, then I expect we're going to hear other arguments about how either staff or DPA has problems, issues, concerns with it, and we should still not be opening the order. From our perspective, this order should have been opened on March 18th. We're now at April 1st. Now we're looking potentially to April 22nd, and now potentially we're looking at sometime in May. And from the company's perspective, that does very much prejudice our ability to move this case forward in a timely fashion.
Chairman Winslow, with all due respect, the company does not have a right to submit an incomplete case and demand that it be opened. But that is what happened when they say they expected the case to be opened in March, and that is what they are asking the commissioners to do now. And the DPA thinks that is highly improper. Thank you.
May I respond, Chair Winslow?
Yes, you can, and no one else should respond after you unless they're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Winslow. Our case was certainly not incomplete when it was filed. As I said before, the issue arose with respect to the migration of customers, which we tried to address as part of the rate case. Staff and DPA didn't want it to be handled that way. They wanted it to be handled separately. So that's what we have been doing. But the case is not incomplete. We are moving forward with filing the appropriate documentation. Again, I think it was a unique circumstance that ended up creating the issue with the cost of service study that we are certainly trying to remedy at this point in time.
Ms. Iori, I have a question for you. The last time this was on the calendar, if I recall correctly, there was a motion to consolidate as well as the opening, obviously of the application. And none of this, well, I guess you weren't aware of some of the facts and circumstances. I guess have changed since then. So I think I've answered my own question. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the party?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Gray.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I do have a question, and I'm not sure I'm finding it in my materials. If the rate case is open now, will any rates be adjusted or changed before the cost of service study is done and presented to the public?
No.
Is that an affirmative no?
Well, I mean,
yes, that's an affirmative no.
No rates will be changed.
Okay. In large measure, with hindsight being 2020, this is one of the reasons my sense was to support the motion to consolidate, because the cost of service, if it's foundational as a metric to get to your rate projections, then I completely agree that the cost of service should be done before we project what those rates look like. And it was fairly clear for me that these changes in the financial landscape from the customer movements in DPL from the previous order were going to have sufficient impact of the rate case moving forward in parallel. But I'm in favor of holding the opening until we get the good cost of service study.
Commissioner Gray, may I answer part of your question?
That's up to the chair.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Drew.
So I just want to clarify that it was actually in Delmarva's application and testimony by Mr. McGowan that the class cost of service study would be changed by April 30th. It has actually less to do with the petition that you have approved previous to this agenda item. That was going to be adjusted by April 30th anyway. That's so. I don't think it should be pinned on 200217 when the company had already committed to doing that anyway in their own application.
I understand, but I'm just saying that I'm more or less in favor of waiting until we get a cost of service as a foundation to quantify what the rates need to look like.
This is Commissioner. I have a question. This is Commissioner Kariyam. I have a question for Ms. Scott. That Ms. Scott, if you are a customer and you get a public notice saying that electric company is looking for $24 million rate increase. After 2 weeks, another notice comes in the newspaper for the customers and for the people, public. It says, no, we are looking for $27 million. That is not very, very, very good public relation, isn't it? Is it?
Commissioner Correa, I guess my response to that would be that I don't think we've had a rate case in the last several years where the revenue request has not changed during the course of the case. So while we certainly try and provide proper notice to customers as to what's happening, the numbers do tend to change over the course of the case, and obviously don't get fully implemented until the commission makes a decision on the case as to what ultimately ends up being implemented and approved.
Oh, okay. But my thinking is, my question to you is again, that during the case, yes, there'll be changes and or recommendations and what have you, and there will be information to the customers and or public both. But this is like opening the docket kind of a timing, like 2 weeks or 4 weeks, where the case is not even has started. It is just a docket is open. That's where my question came up from. I have another question also for Ms. Iori and Mr. Geddes, that if we have a motion or idea that we will allow this agenda item after we receive the cost of service study. But suppose we receive the cost of service study on Tuesday at 7 o'clock in the evening, and then this agenda item is on Wednesday. Will that give you enough time even to open the file?
Well, I'll try to take a whack at that, Commissioner Correa. I believe on the current proposal and in paragraph 7 of the company's order, they say they'll file it by the 30th. And if it was filed on the 30th and the subsequent commission meetings on the 6th, I would think it would give us sufficient time to look at it. But it's not staff's position that we are going to delay any further consideration of an opening order after the cost of service is filed. We will have, obviously, issues perhaps with the cost of service, which we'll discuss during the case. The difference here, I think you put your finger on when you asked Ms. Scott about the notice, is that, yes, during cases, revenues and expenses change, but eventually the commission, in most cases, does not approve 100% of what the company is requesting. But we know here, April 1st today, that the company's prior request is no longer valid. It is before us that they want $27 million. The ratepayers should know that, and they should be notified in the first instance of that, not have a second notice go out as suggested in paragraph 7 of this order, saying, well, we'll go back and we'll modify it in a couple of weeks after the cost of service. There's no reason, there is no prejudice to the company at all, other than the fact that because there are no minimum rates being requested, other than the fact that they would like to have this order done today. That's pretty much the essence of their argument. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Correa, I don't have really anything to add to what Mr. Geddes said. If the company does provide the revised cost of service study on April 30th, the DPA will be prepared to go forward with an opening order at the next commission meeting. I would also say to you that if the company submits its proposed cost of service study a week before April 22nd or April 15th, a day which will live in infamy,
Not this year.
we would be prepared to go forward with that too. But again, as I said, the company hasn't committed to any date other than on or before April 30th.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Scott, do you want to make any final comments?
Thank you, Chair Winslow. I think first I'd just like to confirm, I believe I heard from both representatives of staff as well as the DPA that upon the filing of the class cost of service study, that would not be the basis for holding up an opening order to come before the commission. So I do appreciate that. I cannot commit today as to when that would be filed, but certainly we are working to get it done as quickly as we can as a result of the customer migration issue. But we certainly do appreciate that, and would like to continue to obviously move this case further along without further delay.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I confess that I have a certain amount of sympathy for Delmarva Power and Light and their position for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into. But I also have to confess that Ms. Iore's comment about the double notice is a problem for me as well. So I would move that we place this matter on the next two commission calendars, and if Ms. Scott can produce the cost of service study in adequate time for staff and DPA to review it for the 22nd, we'll hear the matter on the 22nd. If not, it will be the following meeting. And that's my motion. Is there a second?
I second
Commissioner Gray.
Commissioner Conaway.
Okay, I yield.
Commissioner Conaway is the second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thanks, Ms. Scott and everybody. Okay, the next item. The next item on the hearing schedule, and a lot of people are saying goodbye, obviously. The first matter on the hearing schedule is in the matter of the application. Sounds like the entire Exelon Corporation just signed off at one time. Number one is in the matter of the application of Chesapeake Utilities Corporation for approval of its environmental rider rate to be effective December 1st. And we're going to consider, I guess, the exhibits, logs, and proposed order. So if we could have Ms. Orr, I have on my list here Ms. Orr, Mr. Walsh, and Ms. Iori. So is there anybody else who's going to speak on this matter? Ms. Orr, please proceed.
Actually,
Thank you, Chair.
I'm sorry, this is Gina Iori. Very quickly, we did not have a witness in this case, and we support the proposed form of order. So with the chairman and commissioner's approval, may I be excused because we actually scheduled a conference call at 2 o'clock, thinking that this would be, the commission's meeting would be done.
Okay, no problem. We'll see you or hear from you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Ms. Orr.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Lindsay Orr on behalf of Chesapeake Utilities. This is the hearing on Chesapeake's application for approval of its environmental rider rate to be effective December 1st, 2019. The Commission should have the joint exhibit log, and it is my understanding that all parties agree that the exhibits on the exhibit log are admissible, and therefore I would like to offer those exhibits into evidence.
We are admitted without objection.
did you prepare and file an application for approval to implement a new rate under the company's environmental rider tariff provisions?
Yes, I did. Have you reviewed that application? Yes, I have. In connection with that assignment, have you also prepared pre-filed testimony dated October 31st, 2019, consisting of 10 pages of testimony together with attachments MEK1 through MEK5 and exhibits 1 through 3? Yes, I have. Do you have any changes or corrections that you would like to make to your direct testimony? No, I do not. Thank you. Is the information set forth in the application, the exhibits to the application, and your pre-filed testimony true and correct to the best of your knowledge? Yes, it is. If I were to ask you today the questions set forth in your pre-filed testimony, would your answers be the same? Yes, they would. Please summarize the company's proposal in this docket. In this application, the company is requesting approval of its environmental rider, proposing to change the rate level of 0.0004 per CCF to a charge of 0.0005 per CCF, effective for service rendered December 1st, 2019 through November 30th, 2020. Chesapeake incurred $67,834.42 of actual environmental expenses during the environmental cost year ending September 30th, 2019, which consisted of consulting, legal, and other expenses related to the Seaford Town gas site. The environmental cost recovery mechanism calls for a 5-year amortization of costs, offset by an imputed deferred tax benefit. This amount is then grossed up to account for the Delaware PSC assessment of 0.3%. For this 5th-year cost recovery, the company anticipates to recover approximately $45,780.06, which includes the amortized recovery from the first 5 cost years, less the amount that was over-collected in the first recovery year, under-collected in the second recovery year, over-collected in the third recovery year, and under-collected in the fourth recovery year. The rate is then calculated by dividing this net recovery amount by the projected firm sales for the recovery year ended November 31st, 2020, which is 8,742,672 MCS, resulting in a rate of 0.005 per MCF or 0.0005 per CCF. As a result of this proposed change, an average residential heating customer using 700 CCF per year will experience an annual increase of approximately 0.01% or 7 cents. That's all I have. Thank you, Ms. Kozel. Have you had a chance to review the pre-filed testimony of Shona Marshall? Yes, I have. Do you disagree with any of her statements or recommendations? No, I do not. Thank you. I have no further questions at this time. Ms. Kozel is available for cross-examination.
Are there any questions of Ms. Kozel?
Good afternoon, Chairman Winslow. Tom Walsh on behalf of staff. I do not have any questions for Ms. Kozel.
Okay, then, Mr. Walsh, why don't you proceed with the staff's case?
Thank you. Staff calls Ms. Shona Marshall and asks that she be sworn.
Shona Marshall here.
This is the court reporter. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall, could you please state your name and address?
My name is Shona Marshall. My business address is 861 Silver Lake Boulevard, Suite 100, Dover, Delaware.
Who is your current employer and what is your position title?
I am a public utilities analyst with the Delaware Public Service Commission.
And what is your role in this docket number 19? 2019-0724.
I am the case manager responsible for reviewing the application, the testimony, schedules, discovery, and supplemental documentation. I also verify the environmental costs claimed against the invoices submitted to support the mathematical accuracy of the calculations provided by Chesapeake to determine whether they were consistent with the company's tariff.
Pause, please. Pause. Pause. Tom, you need to speak up. You're not coming through very well for the court reporter. Thank you.
Okay. Was public notice posted, and did you receive any public comments pertaining to this application?
Public notice was published on February 26, 2020 in both the Delaware State newspaper and the Delaware News Journal. However, to date, we have not received any comments or objections.
And what are your recommendations for the commission?
Staff did not find any errors in Chesapeake's application or work papers and did not find any inconsistencies with the previous orders related to cost recovery efforts of the Seaford Town gas site. Staff respectfully recommends that the commission approve as final the rates that went into effect on a temporary basis on December 1st, 2019. Staff believes the rates are just and reasonable and in the public's interest.
Now, on the exhibit log number 7, you had filed direct testimony on March 23rd. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any changes to anything in your direct testimony?
No, I do not.
Okay. Does this conclude your testimony?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall is available for cross-examination. Questions from the commission?
Ms. Orr, do you have any questions of Ms. Marshall?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
The DPA is a party to this matter. Ms. Iori informed us that she has a teleconference at 2 o'clock or had one at 2 o'clock, and that she had no objection to the entry of this order. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties? Hearing none, can we have a motion, please?
So moved. This is Commissioner Drexler.
I second it. This is Commissioner Caria.
The motion is to approve the proposed order, and is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. I appreciate it. Is there anyone from the public?
Mr. Chairman, before you move forward, Commission Secretary Don Nickerson reminds me that there is no order for you to act upon in this, I believe.
Tom Walsh on behalf of staff. Chairman Winslow, I apologize. I didn't want to interrupt while you were making that motion. I spoke I corresponded with both the DPA and Ms. Orr, and we are going to have a proposed order ready to present to the Commission on April 22nd.
Well, it'll be based upon what we found today, correct?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so we will approve the proposed order on that meeting date. Thank you very much, Dr. Brewer and Mr. Walsh. Is there anybody on the teleconference from the public that wishes to make any public comment to the Public Service Commission? Dr. Brewer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I don't have anything else to add except that just to state that the next 2 commission meetings are April 22nd and May 13th. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brewer. Thank you for all who were present at the home station, and best wishes to everybody on the teleconference. The meeting is adjourned.